was making things worse was the Op Sindoor, the conflict between India and Pakistan, where Trump claimed that look, both are strong leaders and with strong egos. This man says, "I'm going to crush Chinese economy. I'm going to fix India. Nigeria is a disgraced country." I mean, I think the language for the world's most important power. No, I think the 2025 actually began very well for India and US and is ending on a very low note. That's where we are. I mean, if you had come to India during the elections, US elections, I meant, that everyone was so enthusiastic about Trump coming back because people, the political elite, the bureaucracy, all had good memories of the first term of Trump administration, when it actually went out of the way to to frame a theory in which India's importance became more. The affirmation that China was a rival along with Russia, the construction of the Indo-Pacific as a geography, the creation of the revival of the Quad, and the recognition that look, China was a problem, and that US needs to balance that power, was a break from the previous 40 years, which was really engage China. We can work together. We can make China more like us. So I think that break actually produced what was already a converging trajectories between India and US much closer. And then we saw the Biden administration actually pursue that with much more vigor, focusing more on alliances, the need to build coalitions. But then when Trump came, I mean, I think, in fact, Prime Minister Modi was one of the first to meet Trump in the White House. You had Ishiba for, one of the first leaders. And then Mr. Modi was February 13th, that is, Trump was sworn in on January 20th. Mr. Modi was meeting him on February 13th. And if you read the joint statement, I mean, I think it signaled substantive continuity of Trump 1, Biden, and then Trump 2. But I think the circumstances after that really took a very surprising turn. On trade, for example, I mean, I think India was among the first to start negotiations on the trade deal with Trump. But even today, one view, what we hear in Delhi is that, look, the trade deal was ready for signature way back in July. But that Trump was not ready to sign off. I mean, I think he had historically a lot of grievances about India's trade policy. And then I think making things worse was the Op Sindoor, the conflict between India and Pakistan, where Trump claimed that, look, that he's the guy who fixed it. Now, that was not something easily acceptable to the Indian Prime Minister, and I think that complicated. I think where the two leaders' perceptions, and I would say even their, both are strong leaders and with strong egos, and I think the way the thing played out in terms of the U.S. role, are not actually. The problem was not with the U.S. role, because historically, since the late 80s, every single conflict between India and Pakistan, the Americans were involved at the highest levels.
Right.
But I think it is Trump's claim that, look, he was instrumental in solving the problem, which actually complicates, in a large democracy, the problem for Mr. Modi. And I think I would say that was a factor that prevented consolidating the agreed negotiations on trade. So it became one of Trump wanting to say, look, well, Pakistanis were proposing him for the Nobel Prize. India would not, and India would not even acknowledge his special, role that he played. So I think that got into trouble for us, and we still have not fixed that problem. How do you get the two leaders to step back from this? And I think Mr. Trump keeps repeating every other day, how he played a big role, and I think Mr. Modi now stopped reacting to that. But I think the problem sits out there, complicating it. And my sense is the trade issue. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like Donald Trump didn't understand that doing that would insert himself inside India's domestic politics in ways that would make it complicated to get the deal. I mean, here's a guy who wants to get a deal, but simply doesn't understand when the domestic politics of the United States, which to him require him to be seen as the strongman leader, him to be seen as a peacemaker in the world, taking America out, and overextended and overstretched America out of foreign wars, him to be seen as this master deal maker. He doesn't understand how that reverberates in the domestic politics of other countries, or doesn't care, or both. I'm not sure.
But I
Yeah.
think just the amazing part of Trump 2.0, I mean, that it just seems, I mean, nothing else matters to him except his own ego, his own sense of importance, and where international relations, the engagement between states is conducted according to some general rules, must be even more formal than how individuals relate to each other, which is really you don't abuse each other, you greet each other respectfully, you have to keep saying Your Excellency, blah blah blah. But this man says, I'm going to crush Chinese economy, I'm going to fix India. Nigeria is a disgraced country. I mean, I think the language for the world's most important power, 250 years of democracy, has dealt with the world. So you break even the minimal rules of politics, of engaging other societies. But I think at this point he's been on a roll. He thinks really rest of the world needs him. Therefore, he doesn't have to respect even the minimal rules. And I think that's part of the problem. I think, partly for China, I'm sure India, it's a much more noisy democracy. But at this point, I think that remains a problem, and we got to see how this gets fixed. So, second, I think what we saw happen in the last 6 months, one was the initial 25% tariffs levels, and then the additional 25, where India became he caught in the crossfire on the Trump's Russia strategy. Here, Trump was trying to befriend Russia, and he
Right.
put sanctions on India as a pressure point to get something done in Ukraine. That didn't work. Finally, he's done what it is. Actually, you put sanctions on Russian oil. Now, Chinese and Indians have cut down their purchases. So I think that has added to a 50% tariff today. I mean, even Brazil seems to be sorting things out, and India is really now an outlier on the tariffs issue. And I think the whole question is, can this be sorted out? And I think we finally have an ambassador who was kind of sworn in recently, just a few days ago, as we speak, and he's going to hopefully supposed to be someone close to the president.
Yeah.
So I think the trade issue is not unsolvable. It's easily done, and my sense is if that gets done, it opens a space for the rest of it. That is, the Russian oil sanctions go, and you settle on somewhere around 20%, which is what most ASEAN countries have got. So if you get there, then I think you take a lot of the burden off the relationship, and then the rest of it can proceed. I think what India has taken a strategy, one, after initially countering Trump, they've just stopped arguing with him in public. That is, it only makes matters worse. Second, I think they kept up the engagement with the American system, shall we say, the security establishment, the foreign policy establishment, the technical establishments, so that you keep the systems to engaged and not let the leader level bitterness come into the actual engagement. So I think that's partly the recognition in Delhi that how important this relationship is. You're not going to squander it just because you have this difficulty at the leaders level. So my sense is 2026, if there is, we get to a trade deal by then, early in the next few weeks, then I think the relationship can start on a different note in early 2026. And other day, as he was swearing in, the new ambassador, Sergio Gore, Trump said, "Look, yeah, I'll go to India this year." So I think everything can come back on track if you get this trade business sorted out. And really, there's no other major dispute between India and the US. I mean, the Russian question, the oil, India, in any case, is stopped buying. So